Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Change on the Run podcast, where we discuss common change challenges and ways you can address them when you're short of time. And I'm your host, Phil Buckley. Today's topic is creating a vision for a change. A change vision is a compelling picture of a better future, a future that aligns with the leadership question, what does the company aspire to become? Once set, it acts as a North Star to leaders and employees to envision, plan, implement, and sustain a change to achieve the desired results. So, how do you create a vision of a different, better, and compelling future that guides and motivates people to adopt change and its new ways of working? And my guest today is Jen James. Jen, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so grateful to be here today.
Oh, Jen, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait for our conversation. And Jen is the founder of Double J Lifestyle and Admit One Productions, Inc. She is a mindfulness coach and former Fortune 500 leader with over 20 years experience transforming companies and their leadership teams, including Marvel, Walmart, Hasbro, Skechers, Cott, and Loblaws. Her signature program, The Art of Mindful Storytelling, is designed to build confidence, eliminate burnout, strengthen connections, and empower leaders to translate their stories into marketing and branding with ease. So Jen, what's your experience with creating visions for change?
You're talking about something that literally sits so hard with my heart and my core. All of the work that I do, even in my coaching practice and over the years working in corporations, has been locked in really finding a purposeful vision, because the vision is the foundation to change. So when I say that, I mean that if you don't have a strong and compelling vision, then typically I'm going to say that change will fall flat.
Do you have an example of that?
I do. And I'm going to say whether it's a change that you're instituting in your personal life or it's a change in your corporate life, in your work life, and it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or a large Fortune 500 organization, the vision is the first place of change. So forming a very strategic vision is the first step. And if you look at any of the big change gurus or any of the organizations that lead change management, that is always usually the first step that they start with, is actually finding that and forming that vision. And the vision is really that powerful statement that guides the team to be inspired to see the future. I'll use a corporate example first, but if I go back to my days when I was working at Walmart, and this is obviously a big global national, and I worked at Walmart Canada, and I was brought into a role, a senior role, and I was working in the corporate marketing team, marketing operations. At the time, the organization had a mandate, and there were I think they calculated there were somewhere between 150 and 225 different projects going on at the same time across the organization, all of them change projects. And obviously, they recognized that with all of those projects going on, most of them were not getting over the finish line on time and were not getting completed. And we know with change that when you have too many things going on, that the success ratio goes down by about 70% for completion. They recognized that they needed to change their course of how they were getting projects over the finish line, and they had to rethink things and how they were doing things. One of the things they identified was the fact that a lot of these projects didn't have a clear vision. They were just being managed as tactical projects.
That's a fascinating insight. If you look across so many projects to see where's the gap, how did they figure that out?
We brought in an external team and did some research and some understanding by working with all of the people involved on the leadership of the teams to understand a little bit more about the desired outcomes of the key projects, and started to really bucket them into groupings of where they belonged. And it was coming out pretty clear that the direction forward wasn't really aligned to one strategic vision for the company. And so getting the projects aligned to the corporate strategy and the vision was one of the pivotal changes as the project started to move forward, because there was a couple of things that were happening as I'm going to say a backlash to not having that alignment. One of them was that people were losing their level of engagement. Project fatigue was happening faster. And again, as I was referring to earlier, the projects weren't getting over the finish line. And there was a gap in people understanding, like, why aren't these projects getting complete? And so we do know, and this is sort of rooted in, that projects without vision lose their course correct quite quickly. And that goes back to that when teams don't feel like they have an idea of where they're going, they just lose that momentum. And so it became ever more clear that there needed to be a clear and well-defined vision created by the senior leadership team. And I go back to this because it's really important that the senior leadership team are the ones that are actually rallying around the vision. And it's actually coming from the team that I would say at the top. And then it's actually being bought into by the teams, by all of the teams around that are going to ultimately execute it. So creating that really strong and powerful vision for change, and then really disseminating that message across the organization so that it connects and people can make meaning as to why they should be rallying around this message. That why is the next step. So what happened was when I was at Walmart was we had a project that came out of this vision, and we were able to clearly understand, and my project was really leading the redesign of the promotional planning, basically end to end, moving it from manual to systemized, and transitioning the entire organization into a whole new, faster to market, new cycle times, and then ultimately getting them into this new system and being able to transition that back to the vision that the organization had defined was what got everybody there.
Oftentimes when businesses treat technical changes as, IT projects, or it's really a process and a systems implementation, you can lose the critical elements of engagement and culture and mindsets and behaviors. How did you transition within an organization that was, focused on expediency and getting all those projects done to now having a vision and then linking a systems and process predominantly initiative into kind of the hearts and minds of a compelling vision?
In these types of situations, it's really important to understand, and I go back to always the power of why, the power of the purpose. So it's one thing, to your point, understanding expediency, cost savings, time savings, can check all the boxes, but there is a power of why to each individual that is being impacted. That would go back to what I would talk to from top to bottom, which is the power of the people. And you have to understand that there has to be meaning behind what you're doing for each individual role and what the impact is to those people as you're moving through that type of change, and how that vision that's been defined impacts them and why they should, quite frankly, care about actually moving through this change. And so if it's a system change or it's a process change or both, and in this case it was both, what is the benefit to them and why should they care about doing it?
Sounds like a great experience. And I would imagine there's a bit of capability building on how you create a vision. Any comments about how do you build that capability within a leadership team when it's relatively new to them?
Absolutely. So to build the vision within a leadership team, it's about establishing an understanding of why there's power in a vision. In a team where vision has never been used before. So let's say it's a team that has never spoken vision language. I've actually worked with teams like that before, where it's always been more about the timeline and just getting the project over the finish line, and really just wanting to almost be like the data crunchers, the number crunchers, give me the project plan, go. And so truthfully, vision sits above that. And for some people, they hear vision and they think, okay, that feels like a little fluffy, and like, who really cares? And why would we spend all these hours on something like that? And so it's about providing the education and the awareness of the effect of why a vision is actually important and the value that it provides to not just the executive team, but all the way down across the organization, and the impact that it has and the benefits that it brings. So it's really, I go back to the power of the people.
Mhm.
And that's the part that's really important when it comes to vision, is it's not just about one person. It's actually about everybody that it touches.
And it sounds like, we talk about a business case for a change and, what are the
Yeah.
investment requirements and then what are the benefits? But it sounds like for a team like that, you need to present a business case for even doing a vision, or it will come across as fluffy or, wasted time or not strategic before you can even move forward and get full participation and alignment.
In many cases, yes, because I have been in situations where they actually want to skip the step. They want to go, okay, well, let's just skip the vision part. Let's just get into like building the change team that's going to manage the project. And let's just get into the project itself, because they just want to start doing the work and seeing the change that's going to happen as a byproduct of it. Setting that foundation of, we want to create the foundation of the buy-in and giving people purpose and giving them that guidepost of what they can believe in. It starts with your vision, because
Right.
that articulates that really purposeful direction. I'll give you another example. I went to work on a project, I would say probably one of my more recent projects. I was working with Loblaws. And one of the reasons that I was working there was actually to do exactly what we're talking about, which was really to come in and establish a new way of working for the design studio, the private label design studio. But part of it was really locked in. One of the first things that we did was establish a vision, because the team hadn't had a vision in quite some time. But I had to first get the vision in front of the executive leadership and get their buy-in. Was that what they were expecting from me? Was that what they were thinking I was going to do? I don't know that that's what they thought I was going to do out of the gate, but that's what I did. And I had to sell them and get the buy-in on that process first and explain to them that here's what I know the team needs based on what I'm seeing from where they're coming from and all the change that they're going to go through. They need something to believe in. They need that guidepost to direct them. It's kind of like the lighthouse for the sailboat, right? That's something that they can rally around, that can become familiar to them and really guides them in all their decision making as they continue on their journey. And so creating that buy-in with the executive leadership really helped to not only create that foundation with the executive leaders and their partnerships, but then it also went kind of branched off to their teams, who were ultimately creating stronger relationships with our team. It has a lot of benefits, not just from a direct, but also an indirect perspective as you're building that roadmap for change.
I can imagine it takes some guts or fortitude and definitely wisdom to pause in that beginning moment and not go into the plan or the design thinking format, whatever you did, but to hold that space. And it it takes a lot of fortitude.
Well, for sure. I mean, I have my Six Sigma. And I naturally like to I love to do the work. Like that's my natural is like, I like to go in through, roll up my sleeves, and I like to do like the actual digging. And so, yeah, I'm naturally a builder. And so, but I understand the power of a strong vision. And I think anyone can relate here. There's visionaries all around us in this world, right? And if you think back to a couple of really powerful visionaries, like if you think about Steve Jobs and the power of think differently, of what he created there, just 2 words changed our world. Or you think about somebody like Oprah Winfrey and her vision and the vision that she's created for her community and her culture. And I think that when we think about a Richard Branson, I mean, I could keep going with
so many great leaders.
Yeah, there's so many, right? There's so many, but there's a reason why. And the reason why is that they are visionaries. They establish that future trajectory for their teams, and their teams rally around that, and they build and they grow to that.
What makes that winning vision that will drive people forward in the right direction?
And it's interesting because that's the work that I do is I coach businesses to help build their vision. The interesting part about creating a vision is it's really about connecting to the core, and as a business leader, of who you and your business are from the core, and allowing your inhibitions to have no barriers to seeing the future of what can be. So that sounds a little bit like, what? I mean, but it really is allowing there to be no inhibitions to getting to where you want to go. And
Right.
so there's no barriers. You kind of let down that guard and you allow yourself to think about the future in a way has creates no blockages, no inhibitions. And you really just let yourself, and this is a lot of the work that I do with people as they're creating their vision for what they want to achieve, so that there's no limitations.
Is there an element of permissibility in the vision to do things differently? And I know it's a literal Steve Jobs one, but I mean, even Oprah Winfrey with her O magazine, she ran it quite differently. Is there a permissibility to get new results? You have to do new things.
Absolutely. It's pushing yourself kind of to that place. It's naturally uncomfortable to be in a space. And for a lot of people, it's actually very uncomfortable to I want to use the word dream. And especially in a corporate context, dreaming for another company, right? So it's creating that sort of really aspirational place of where you can go. I'll give you an example of like Southwest Airlines vision statement, which is like really powerful, but it really locks up like what a good vision statement is, which is to be the world's most loved, most flown, and most profitable airline. And so when you think about that, it's like a little bit out of like, is that really, are they really going to get there? Like, is that real? But should you want that? Should you aspire for that? Yeah, of course you should. That is a good thing to dream for, like to want as an airline. And so it's allowing yourself, to your point, giving yourself the permission to say, yeah, I want that. Like that is what I want for myself, for my company. I think the strongest vision statements achieve that want, achieve that aspiration, and do that in a very thoughtful way.
But then there's probably for some leaders pressures to go back to the here and now and what they've always done and the next quarter results and all those realities. Have you coached anyone that was willing to go for it, but in the reality of time and days going forward, their either mindsets, how they thought, how they acted, or how they behaved actually contradicted what they said they wanted the organization to move toward?
Yes.
What happened? How could it not in so many ways? What went on?
I've been in environments and I've worked in environments or I have coached people who are working in environments where one person or the person, for instance, I was in an environment where I was hired. The person who hired me wanted so many amazing changes for the organization, like beautiful roadmap for change and wonderful ideas of how to evolve an organization that was kind of stuck in legacy land, I call it. Just not ready, not on that cusp of evolution, definitely not a leader in the industry. But the other individuals in the executive and senior level were just not ready for change, and definitely not at the pace that this person wanted it to occur. And so there was natural friction. I always talk about small steps to big change. And so we definitely started to make baby steps forward, but it was super uncomfortable. And like it was a lot of extremely difficult conversations. And ultimately, they just weren't ready. Like they were not ready to make the commitment. The president, the EVP level, they just were not ready to make the type of commitment that they needed to make in order to level up. So sometimes people just aren't ready to do it.
How do you call it in this regard? Because even if it was more of a consulting, coaching perspective, and all of a sudden it's just not working, all of your sort of interventions or steps in to try and it's just not going to work. No. How do you call it in a way that you can actually leave the pieces, still connected so that they can go at a slower pace or stay in today's world and not into the future?
I've learned this. I think maybe I've learned this over the years, and maybe I've learned it the hard way, but I can see early signs of resistance, and, discomfort is one thing, because there's a definite difference between hard resistance and discomfort, right? Because discomfort you can lean into, and you can coach people to get comfortable in their discomfort, and you can push people to maneuver into discomfort. But hard resistance and an actual line in the sand where people start to shut down
Mm,
and not listen. And, and for anybody that's worked in a legacy environment, which I'm sure many people have, you would be familiar with some of the narratives that you get. Well, it's been working fine this way for X amount of years. And so why right size the ship now? We're making money, we're
right.
profiting. So what's wrong? Nothing's broken. Why would we start thinking about changing? So these are common narratives that you hear in these types of environments. And sometimes mindset is just not ready yet.
As you say, it's those tapes that people play. We're so successful, it could fail, all those things to stop.
I go back to the vision. If the vision is established up front and you have the executive buy-in, usually you don't have those problems. Now you can have vision establishment, fake buy-in, and then you get what I call the backhanded comments that start afterwards that sort of start to manipulate the ship in a backwards direction. So you think the ship is going to start to move forward, but then it starts to go in reverse. Yes. Which is sort of what happened to me in this particular situation. We had a vision for where we wanted to go. We thought the ship was moving forward quite quickly. It was almost like a motorboat. And then suddenly it was like the vision started to fall apart. It was like, we thought there was buy-in, but now there wasn't. And if you don't have a majority of your executive team on board and you can't get that group around it, then I don't want to say you're on a sinking ship, but you have to figure out how, and I go back to the purpose and the why and the education around it of why is this important to me? And sometimes that takes quite a bit of work, to be honest, is sitting down with each of the different teams and understanding their pain points of what's happening today, a lot of listening to, a lot of them may be saying, well, I'm good. Like everything's good for me, and really understanding where they're at.
Have you ever had a vision? I haven't, but I'd love to hear your perspective where, because something has changed, even taking our marketplace now and what's going on, that the external factors are so different from when you created the vision that you change your vision.
I find that visions rarely change. The way you get to them, which is your mission, changes. But I find that, because I think about my own vision for my company, which is creating purpose and changing lives. And I don't see that changing. In fact, I see that even stronger now and more true. And I do an exercise with people where they actually write a vision script, which is really kind of getting into the meat around how your vision builds over 15 to 20 years. And so some of the things in there would definitely change based on market and like all of those pieces. But I haven't had a lot of people change their vision because of the pandemic. Mission, yes, because that's the what and the how I serve up and how I service and work with customers. But I haven't seen a lot of vision statements changing.
And maybe that's part of the criteria of making a good vision too, that you make it just like your company, that you may go toward that direction in different ways because of the external environment, but the goal is just the same. And I have one just came up where there's an organization that wanted to be the biggest and the best. So they went for both of it. And it was really clear they couldn't be the biggest anymore. So they chopped off the biggest part, but the best was the heart and the soul of the organization anyway. So it didn't really change much at all. It just sort of doubled down on the best part, which I thought was great.
That sounds amazing. And that's like, those are the things when people revisit their vision, it can be for those specific reasons. It's like, okay, well, maybe we can't be both, but we can be, we want to be all one or something like that. And I love that. But normally I don't see a lot of people too often revisiting their vision statement unless there's been a big, to your point, a big shift maybe in direction. But even when a new CEO comes on, it's typically not the vision that's looked at.
Very cool. This is so fascinating. I'm wondering, given, in a perfect world, we'd be creating a vision and we'd have lots of time to be working with leaders, and, we would make sure that there's sufficient buy-in, and then we'd launch and it would be success. And, a year later, we've got the perfect vision. But oftentimes I find that we don't have a lot of time. You almost have to focus in the spirit of change on the run. You've got to do like, what's the one or two things you can do that will get you as far as possible in the shortest amount of time. And I was wondering if you were time pressured, that you're working with a team, you needed to come up with a great vision.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? And I think back to my project, even at Loblaws, it was a very time sensitive, time pressured. And so coming up with the vision was actually, I had to do it really fast.
I can imagine.
It was like, oh, like 2 weeks. So sometimes in those situations, I go back to, it's always about power to the people. I go back to that. Like, it's really about people and getting buy-in from people. And so I always say, use your resources to the best of your ability. And so you can come up with a vision for your project, right? So if you're working on a big change project, or you're starting to think about your business and you want to build a vision or think about a vision, there's nothing wrong with starting to come up with something, but then rally your people. So both on, again, I talk about like the executive team, get them together and share. And then build I think Cotter uses this language about a guiding coalition. Like, get your group together of people that are going to be your champions, and then share and get feedback. You can do that really quickly. It doesn't have to be a big process in the beginning, but use the champions that you plan to for what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. And always, always ask for feedback.
That is so well said. Wow, thank you. And I'm just wondering, as we close off, is there kind of like for the listeners, just a parting insight or watch out, or just something to keep with them when they are working on or trying to achieve visions, anything that might help them out?
There's 2 things. One of them is listen carefully, listen always. So it's like, keep your ears open. You just really never know what you're going to learn and who you're going to learn it from.
Great. Wow. Excellent.
So that's like one of the biggest things that I've taken away from my corporate experience and my change work experience, because I've learned so much from the most unlikely conversations. And the other part is related, but the power of silence and observation. Sometimes being the quietest person in the room and knowing when to say things, so when to share and when to talk about your vision, is more critical than actually sharing it.
Wow, that's great. And I can see how that comes with years of experience versus at least I know when I was early in my career, well, why wouldn't I be talking all the time?
Me too. Oh my goodness.
We're still alive to tell the tales.
I made it out alive.
We made it. Jen, thanks so much for being on the show. Really appreciate your perspectives. How can people get in contact with you?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Either through my website, which is doublejlifestyle.com, or same thing, Instagram is doublejlifestyle. That's my handle. And you can reach out to me there. And on Facebook as well, you can reach out to me and contact me through my new Facebook group, The Mindful Entrepreneurs. Those are probably the best ways to get me.
Great. And how can people check out your latest program? Because it's really impressive. So is there a link or something that could connect them there if they're interested?
For sure. Our new program, the website's up now. It's theartofmindfulstorytelling.com. So check that out. And if you have questions, then by all means, reach out.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jen. Thanks so much for being on the show. And I'd also like to thank our producer, Charlie Buckley, and thank you for listening. And if you have any questions or comments, please email me at phil@changewithconfidence.com. And for upcoming episodes, please subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you are a person that would like to help out, if you could leave a review, it just helps us get to more people that are interested in this content and hopefully can learn from our great guests. So until the next time, I wish you all the best as you continue to lead change.